Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast, your one-stop shop for all things hybrid and multi-cloud networking. Now, here are your hosts, Tim, Chris, and Alex.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Cables to Clouds Fortnightly news. As always, I'll be your host this week, Tim at Juan Golbez on X, but not for long, maybe. And with me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Chris, who is at BGP Main on Twitter for the moment.
Yep. For the moment.
Yeah, so for the moment, exactly. I guess we'll just launch right into the news this week. It's pretty interesting. We have a little bit of a roundup. We got a little bit different for little something for everybody. Speaking of, so our first story is that Twitter is seeing a mass exodus of tech people, actually. So, or X, or as Alex would call it. There's a large number of people who are actually deleting their accounts, deleting all their tweets, getting rid of X or Twitter completely, and migrating over to BlueSky. So we have an article here from TechCrunch called "How to Use BlueSky," and as part of the stats, or rather, as part of the article, it mentions some pretty impressive stats actually from BlueSky here. Now, BlueSky is not brand new; it's actually been around for like almost a year now. I think I messed with it when it first started. As about a year.
I feel like it's more than that. I
it
think
might be
older than that. Yeah.
All right, but it's not. It hasn't been probably very well adopted, because up until now, the gravity of social media people have been on Twitter. But so after the election and given Elon's involvement and just honestly, really just it's just been kind of a slope that's been going down for a while. BlueSky is absolutely exploding. So here the article mentions that they've now surpassed 16 million users, and many of them within the last 2-3 weeks, since the election, which is pretty crazy actually. And it's actually on track and every day, keeps growing. So this is interesting because BlueSky is not actually crashing and burning like you would expect with the rapid, huge influx of people. And I can actually attest to this myself. I don't know if Chris has noticed the same, and we'll check with him in a second. But, I've actually lost a decent number of followers on Twitter, and I was checking, and it's not like everybody just decided that they hate me all of a sudden and get rid of me. There's actually a large amount of people who, followed me at the tech sphere that deleted their accounts. They're gone. They're moved. And I'm seeing a lot of people show up in BlueSky and gaining a lot of followers. And it's been interesting. I don't know, Chris, are you seeing any of this? Have you made the move yet? Or?
Well, Tim, I was kind of like you. I started up a BlueSky account back when it kind of was popping off, which was, a year and some change ago, I think. But I thought it was really cool at the time, and it seemed like it was gaining traction, and it just never really took off, and people would just kind of regress back to Twitter or something like that. But now I think with recent events being the election, and Elon's obviously there's no hiding which side of the fence he's on with a lot of this stuff, and it's becoming quite obnoxious, and he's running this in a very certain way now. And I think I know a lot of people that were like, the day that he pretty much announced there's no more block button, that's game over.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can no longer block people. You can only now it's you can only hide their interactions from yourself, but they can still see your stuff or something like that.
That's right.
Nonetheless,
they can see your stuff.
Right. So it's he claims it's on the bounds of freedom of speech, but that's bullshit. It's that should be. But wasn't there threats that if there's no proper block function, that it won't be able to be hosted in the App Store anymore? Wasn't that part of
I do remember reading about that. Yeah, Apple, one of the terms of service for Apple was for a social media application, app to require the ability to essentially block or otherwise, protect yourself from harassment. So I wonder if that's been challenged, or if Apple's going to go to bat on that, or I'm very curious too.
But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, Blue Sky was one of these things, and keep me honest here, Tim, but I'm pretty sure it's one of these kind of like decentralized social media platforms, kind of like Mastodon was. Mastodon just kind of never got the traction either, but like they're using this specific like @ protocol, I think is what it's called,
Yeah.
for like the like you have a domain name tied to your actual handle on there. So you have to, I'm sure people signing up for these accounts on Blue Sky are, if they're not familiar with DNS, they're probably learning about DNS because that requires some of the authorization to get a specific domain on your handle. But I definitely encourage people to check it out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I snagged mine. I used @CarpeDiemVPN for mine. Back when I signed up, and yeah, you have to create a record in your whatever your DNS host is if you own a domain, and then the record is what gets queried by Blue Sky to basically, it's like an authentication thing, right? Are you from this domain? Here's your authentication. If you don't have that though, of course their normal one is like .bsky.social, which you'll just get if you don't feel like creating a DNS record. So there's a lot of that, but it is pretty cool. I actually, and from a decentralization perspective, it's not like Mastodon where there's all these different servers. Like you join a server, I think it's right. Like that's the big thing about Mastodon, right? Is that you would join a specific server or run your own. And so like it was truly decentralized. Like everyone was just kind of running their own instances, or you could join an instance that somebody else is running.
Right.
And then somehow I don't know how they federate or something like that. So I never really got too far into it. Blue Sky is decentralized in a different way. I think it's based on the protocol. It's more about the protocol, like you said. But This is pretty interesting stuff, guys. The from a social media perspective, I mean, Twitter's been around for 20 years now, almost, right? Like and to see. And the gravity, any social media platform is only as good as the gravity of the people that are using it, right? So It's right in the name, social media, right? So, this article mentions that just on Wednesday, X saw more than 115,000 visitors or users deactivating their Twitter accounts. Like this is not a small amount of. This is not this is not just sour grapes or something like that, right? There's a very real exodus going on. So
I remember. I think it was only a few weeks, maybe like late October. Kelsey Hightower pretty much announced he's like, I'm done with Twitter. He's like, I'm leaving. Yep. I'm going to Blue Sky. No plans to come back. And I think he just posted yesterday. He was like, yeah, this is one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's and so it's definitely thriving. And I think if Kelsey Hightower is saying that probably means something. He's one of the most active guys on social media in that space, right? So, yeah.
You know what? I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but one thing that I feel is very interesting is I've seen from multiple people on Blue Sky that I know, that I followed on Twitter, that I interact with regularly. These are people I know as well as you can know anyone in social media, have basically said that since just blowing away their Twitter account and not going to it and not reading it, that their mental health is better. Like they're not raging all the time. Like, I mean, let's be fair. Yeah. Like we know that X is rage bait, right? Like all social media thrives on rage bait. So, I mean, and who knows, maybe someday, Blue Sky will become the thing we hate. But right now, at least they said a lot of people, more than people that I thought, are like, this is the best decision I made for my mental health. I'm just getting much more done. I'm having a better day. So interesting stuff, guys.
Yeah. I was one of those people that purely kept things separate. Like I had 2 separate Twitter accounts, like one for like personal stuff and then one for like industry technical stuff. So like I was able to navigate that pretty well, and like having like my one feed that was pure like dog shit, just like entertainment, like not stuff that betters my life in any way. And then, I had the tech side of it where I was like, I kept the feed pretty clean, and it was just folks like, like-minded folks and talking about tech. But it is completely jumped the shark, man. It's like, I just get absolute bullshit on both feeds now. So it's like, I'm heavily considering just wiping one or both of them and like you said, I think Blue Sky is benefiting from the fact that it's a certain ilk of people that have gone over to Blue Sky. So the content is good. The people are nice. People haven't gotten like very mean and and stuff like that. But yeah, I encourage everyone to check it out. It's worth going there, at least for right now. So do it.
Yeah. And I guess we should probably go ahead and do a Cables to Clouds account on BlueSky. I don't think we've made one yet.
Yeah, I'm glad
so
you said it because I was, we've got the domain already, so it'll be easy.
Right, and we got the domain and everything. Maybe we should do a walkthrough of how to do domain, update your domain for BlueSky. That'd be interesting.
Look for that on our TikTok account, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so moving on. The next one is a press release from Aviatrix. As always, of course, Chris and I work for Aviatrix, so we're not here to shill, but at the same time, this is a pretty big announcement, and it does affect cloud networking. So we're sharing it in that spirit, right? So Aviatrix just released a new cloud network security platform as a service. So Aviatrix obviously has been around for quite a while as a platform, meaning a full networking platform. They've got we have security and all of that stuff is baked in. This is a new offer, a new package for the same technology with a bunch of new stuff rolled in, right? So what we're calling Aviatrix PaaS for short, but Cloud Network Security Platform as a Service. That's quite the descriptive name. Is a managed service. So if you're familiar at all with like Viptela SD-WAN, or Cisco SD-WAN rather, how the controller is managed by Cisco, and then you as a user, you utilize the platform to deploy your networks and to manage your lifecycle infrastructure and all that. That's basically what this is from a pure technology perspective. Aviatrix hosts the control plane, the controller, the co-pilot, all of the control surfaces, does all the lifecycle management. So you as the customer focus entirely on how are you going to use your cloud network. Now, in the first iteration, the use case that we're supporting is called Cloud Perimeter Security, which is deploying Aviatrix security policy and gateways into VPCs and VNets and VPCs, VNets, and eventually VCNs, I'm sure as well. Actually, I don't remember, Chris. Do we support OCI in the very first version of this or not?
Not day one. I think.
I didn't think we did.
Google Cloud and OCI are roadmap for early next year.
That's right. So this is a first iteration of the platform as a service, but it's been asked for by customers for a long time because managing infrastructure can be kind of painful, and of course lifecycle management and all of that. So Aviatrix listened, and we packaged up an entirely new offer. Also built into this is going to be some very interesting Gen AI stuff. I'm not gonna get too much into it because a lot of this stuff is going to come out closer to reInvent, but just we're doing some stuff with AI that goes far beyond talk to your network type level stuff. It's going to be a lot more interesting. There's going to be real insight, real recommendation stuff. So stay tuned on that. Anything to add to that, Chris?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. It's I will say, in my experience up to this date, I'm actually surprised with how many services that people consume from a network perspective that are SaaSified, so to say, right? Where there's a completely hosted, even sometimes control and data plane, whereas in this instance we're really just focusing on the control plane. So there's obviously a lot of trust that goes into that with a specific vendor and things like that, and we fully understand that. So it's I'm really happy to see this come out. Like you said, it's been something that we've been asked for quite some time. One thing that's pretty cool is I feel like we do a good job at being able to discover things and host it all in one pane of glass type thing. Yeah. But it's the long pole in the tent is always you got to get the control plane deployed in your own environment in order to do that. You have to manage the life cycle of it. You have to make sure it's highly available. You have to put load balancers in front of it. And for some customers that is easy. That is totally fine. They want things in-house, but a lot of customers don't want to deal with that. So, we'll put that burden on us and take that over. So, really excited to see this come out. We've been talking about it internally for months and months and months now. So, I'm glad to see it finally hitting the light of day. Yeah.
I want to talk so badly about all the new Gen AI stuff we've built into this platform, but I can't. So all I can say is stay tuned. There is some, and I don't use this word lightly, right? We have put some really useful Gen AI stuff in there that's not just a chat box. So yeah, I can't wait to show everybody what we're working on. So very excited.
Okay. Next up, we have an article from computerworld.com. The title of this is FTC Eyes Microsoft's Cloud Practices Amid Antitrust Scrutiny. So if you've been in touch with the news probably in the last 6 to 12 months, you would know that Microsoft is they've had a lot of concerns coming around antitrust and their practices towards competitiveness and things like that. So this is kind of another one talking about the FTC, which is the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, preparing to investigate Microsoft for the article points out that they were doing things like sharply raising subscription fees for customers looking to switch providers, imposing high exit charges, and reportedly making Office 365 less compatible with competitor cloud services. So I can't say I'm surprised, but I think they got in trouble recently for something about the packaging of Microsoft Teams in all this stuff by default, and it became like a default chat platform or something. And so it's basically just another another edition of this dog and pony show with Microsoft. And it also talks quite a bit about the previous FTC interventions with the within the cloud sector, like with their acquisition of Blizzard and things like that. So there's not a ton in here as far as data wise, but it's almost like they're preparing to launch an investigation. So I'd be very curious to see what they find. I don't think I'll be that surprised, but I don't know. How about you, Tim?
I mean, this isn't news, right? This goes back to like the early 2000s, like when they were packaging Internet Explorer with Windows, and there was a big antitrust lawsuit in Europe about that. Like this is right. Classic Microsoft. This is their strength and their weakness, right? We've talked about on the show multiple times where Microsoft's strength is being able to commoditize their offer and bundle all of their shit together so that, of course, I'm going to use Azure. I've already got my Office 365. I already have Microsoft Teams. Right. I already have whatever. I'm already using all this shit already. Why wouldn't I use Azure? Right? It's one ecosystem, and that's always been Microsoft's go-to, right? For better or worse, right? And so, how many times have they stuck their hands on the burner, so to speak, seen how far they can go with it, and then before they get slapped back by a some kind of antitrust body. I think it was Europe. I think the Internet Explorer thing was Europe. They paid a huge fine, right? But I guess if you pay the fine and keep on doing the thing, like, is it? It's not an effective fine. I mean, we've talked about that too. How a fine is really just it only puts things out of the range of companies that can't afford to pay it, basically. So yeah, no, that's very, very normal for Microsoft. I am a little dismayed that, that to go that far as to build it into the licensing and all of that. But allegedly, right? This is all allegedly. Mm-hmm. Well, but yeah, we'll see what the FTC. Actually, I have very little faith that the FTC will do anything useful for the next 4 years. But
good point.
It's just occurred to me now.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's
that one could get even more. Going to go very far.
That might just be like, oh, you know what? Actually, we're all good. Everything you're doing is fine. All right. Last one for today. We have an article from Forbes talking about Google Cloud. Titles: Google Cloud goes transparent with new critical security announcement. So if you're familiar with kind of a CVE system or a common vulnerabilities and exposure system. So it's a common way to just report, crucial vulnerabilities and exploits and things like that in digital systems, and involves kind of a system of, there's people out there that can submit these known vulnerabilities to the vendor or to the operator in terms of like a bug bounty type thing. This one's kind of interesting. So the Google Cloud head of security response, I think is actually the title, Sri Telestrium. Sorry, I probably butchered that name, but I've never heard it out loud. But so they announced a major expansion of their CVE program. So they're going to be publishing um, all of their kind of CVEs for the systems that are running on Google Cloud, and there's this kind of weird thing is like I actually had to look this up to see whether or not Microsoft and AWS do this on a regular basis as well, because the thing is about with the cloud, it's like every one of their services, even if there was a known CVE, there's no customer interaction in order to patch that. Typically, when a CVE is launched, you have to have some type of response to it, right? I need to go in and patch this server or do something like that. I have to have a triaged response for that. But this is all owned purely by the vendor in this case. So Google Cloud, or if it was AWS or Azure, they do it, and the customer's kind of none the wiser. So I think it's more just about a goal of being transparent, and they can I guess they've talked about they can improve their bug bounty for the hunters out there that are trying to do these things as well. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it seems like it's nice. I don't necessarily know that I understand the full benefit of it on the surface. Like I said, with this being something that's not done by customers, but I don't know. How do you feel, Tim?
Yeah. So CVEs are interesting, right? In the case of like a cloud native service, like AWS has. I was looking this up. Actually, I was curious what kind of CVEs that Amazon is issuing. Actually, let me see if I can find it. I had it up here a second ago. Sorry, I lost it. But like, I seem to remember seeing a CVE issued for like Transit Gateway or something like that. And like Chris was, like you were saying, usually the point of a CVE is to obviously get it patched, but also for an incident response, because, hey, you're a customer, you're running affected software, you are now exploitable. This makes you aware of it, and also, you should patch it or fix it or do whatever whatever the mitigation is in the CVE. Here, of course, with a native service, you don't have any interaction with the native service, like, or in terms of like being able to lifecycle it, patch it, mitigate really in any way. So it's interesting. That's not to say that, and I think that the article mentions it as well. The guy whose name I probably can't pronounce either mentions it as well. Like, being transparent about vulnerabilities is about more than just, just mitigate. Letting customers know that there's mitigation that needs to take place. Sometimes it's just about making people aware of vulnerabilities that exist. So I kind of agree with that. I mean, it's better to know than not know, even though ultimately, usually by the time like if Google's issuing a CVE, the odds are very high that by the time you see the CVE, it's mitigated in some way, right? So, but it is still good to have it out there for recording purposes, if nothing else, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a weird one.
Yeah, it feels like to me it's probably just more about like providing customers comfort and maybe stopping an inbound communication channel before it happens. Like, I'm sure there's people that are, constantly having to, discuss with the cloud providers, like, hey, either I know about this CVE, or, are you guys affected by this? And, yeah, I mean, transparency is good, but I wonder, what is the overall benefit here? I don't necessarily know, but I want to make sure I don't come across like I think this is a bad thing or a useless thing or just like giving themselves a pat on the back type thing. But yeah, I'm curious if anyone out there knows what the major benefit of this is. Please let us know. I would like to hear from you guys.
Yeah. Okay, and with that one, I think we're about ready to wrap up. I think we do have some more. As always, we don't get to everything. There are some links in the show notes, or sorry, not show notes, the news that we'll get out. So always recommend taking a look at the news page.
Well, the news doc is in the show notes, so if you need to find it, go there.
Yeah, go to the show notes to find the news doc. They're technically two separate assets. But yeah, we always recommend, because we always put interesting things in there. We just obviously we can't get to everything, right? So With that, thank you again for always for listening or watching or both. Definitely make sure that you send Chris a Christmas card in Australia in about a month or so. It might get there around Christmas time.
Yeah, send it
and
now.
like, subscribe. Join us on BlueSky when we get over there.
Yeah, maybe. We got what, like 3 days to get this out. I might be able to start an account by then. So yeah, find us on BlueSky.
Okay, well, look for us. We might have it on there by then. And so yeah, if not, I assure you it's coming. But yeah. Anyway, all right, guys, have a good week.
Hi everyone, it's Chris, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables to Clouds. You can also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.